A couple months ago, my daughters wanted me to take them to a Starbucks, and so we were going to go through the drive-thru, and we were trying to get into this particular Starbucks, and it was on the corner, and we couldn't get in the parking lot. So there was this family, I guess, that I can see inside the car. It was a big old Suburban, and they let us in. And when they let us in the parking lot, it put us right in the drive-thru, and we cut in front of the person who let us in. Yeah, I know, it was weird. And I couldn't get out. I couldn't maneuver to get out to kind of let them back in line where they were. They were so gracious to let me in, and now I've cut in line. I could feel their anger coming through the Suburban. I didn't want to see who they believed was number one or not. But I was perplexed, and so I get to the little initial order place there, and now they have this particular one had a video screen, and the barista is there, and she looks in there, and she has her little nose ring on, and she says, hi, what can I get for you? And I said without hesitation, I said, absolution. I said, absolution. She said, we don't offer that, So I said, no. So I said, here's what happened. And I tried to explain to her my dilemma of what happened and how I'd, cut in line accidentally. And I said, okay, here's the deal. Here's what I want you to do, okay? I got the order. I said, there's a car behind me, a Suburban. I don't know who in the heck they are. But I want you to go ahead and put their order, whatever it is, they're behind me now, on my credit card. She goes, okay. So we go and continue in line, and my girls are like, Dad, what are you going to do if they have like a $100 or $200 bill? How are you going to pay for all of that? I said, that's just the price I'm paying for coffee today. So, an absolution. So I thought about that. It was kind of a crazy scenario, and I thought about the question, what can I get for you? And so many times when I go into a place, or perhaps you're brand new to church or second, and you're wondering, well, what do you have to offer me? What do you have to give to me or to us as a family? And I think really as we go and launch out into this brand new year, 2019, I would say it's the desire of my heart and the desire of our heart to, first of all, help you and help all of us to know God. To know God. And then not just to know Him emotionally, but to know Him intellectually and to know Him in a way that impacts your life. So there are a lot of people here who are seeking to know God. There are a lot of people here who've known God a very long time. We have people at all different places across the spiritual spectrum here in this worship center. So we want you to know God. The second thing we want you to do is to grow in God. It's not enough to simply know Him. God has designed us as human beings, as people who are designed by Him to grow in Him. We don't want to be stagnant in 2019. We want to grow. And the last thing, check it out, we want to go with God. Now, what do you mean by go with God? I want you to go with God by taking steps out of your comfort zone. When God may call you to do something or to say something or to take an action, to take that step out of your comfort zone and to go with God in this brand new year. So quickly, the way that we do that, two ways that we do that to help all of us here to know God, to grow in God, and to go with God is every Sunday we meet right here at 11:11 for worship. We do. We meet at 11:11, and we meet for 1 hour. 1 hour. I value your time. I hope you value my time. I'm uptight. If I'm going too long, I'll do it today. I will cut the message off, and there will be more next week, and we're going to be okay. So it's 1 hour of worship, 1 hour in a cell phone-free environment to connect with the transcendent one who knows us and made us. So we gather here at 11:11 for that 1 hour for the purpose to know, grow, and go with God. Second of all, the second way we do this, and you heard us talk a lot about this, is through our classes that meet at 9:30 on Sunday morning before the 11:11 hour. We have classes. If you're 2 months old, 2 years old, 12 years old, 18, 28, 38, 48, 58, 88, married, single, somewhere in between, it doesn't matter. We have classes that meet at 9:30 for 1 hour right before the service, and in these classes is where the church gets really small. okay? It gets really small. And so you build a sense of community, you build relationships, because God designed us to live in community, not to be solo pilots. Now, this year we're doing something really cool in our classes. We call them Bible study classes. It's for people who are beginners or medium, or you've been in the game for a while. But we're going through the entire Bible. So a lot of people own a Bible. A lot of people have a Bible, but a lot of us don't know what is the message. So we're going through the entire Bible chronologically. And you should have a chronological Bible. Maybe you bought one, and it's really cool. And you can go and study and read every single day in this brand new year. And then in our classes at 9:30, we're going to teach through the Scripture. What if I miss? Good question. Wednesday night, we have makeup class. You can go to makeup class, and you will catch right back up. All right? So that's it. What do we have to offer as a church family? And what do we desire to do? We desire to know God and to grow with God and to go with God, okay? So where do we start? Where are we going to start today? Well, let's start in the beginning. The beginning will be a good place to start. I read an article this week that I didn't believe it. I just thought it was one of these things, it's not true. So I looked it up. It's true. The University of Wyoming, I don't know if they still do, but they offered a class, check this out, in interstellar message composition. Now you're wondering, what in the heck is that? Well, they believe, and this class is sponsored by a grant from NASA, they believe that if there is intelligence out there, aliens, that we need to be prepared to be able to communicate to them. So you can take a course at this university in Wyoming on IMC, interstellar message communication. So one of the first assignments was to write a message, kind of like an SOS, in 10 words describing the human condition to aliens who may or may not be listening. So you get 10 words. So one student did it in 9 words, their communication to the universe, first, or aliens, okay? Here's what the student wrote. We are an adolescent species searching for our identity. It's pretty good, isn't it? What's the human condition? We're trying to communicate to someone who's never been to our planet. This student says we're an adolescent species searching for our identity. Now, it's not uncommon since the 1960s for people to go on a quest to, quote, find themselves. Find themselves. Usually it involves some money set aside for you and someplace in Colorado or California, and you go there to, quote, find yourself. And I do believe that we have become and are a generation that's seeking desperately to find a sense of identity. And a lot of times we're trying to find a sense of identity by looking in the wrong place. So today I want us to go back to the very beginning, and really the beginning of the beginning, and talk about how we can find our sense of self by understanding our origins, okay? So if you have a Bible, open them to Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Almost everyone here can find that verse. It's the very first book in the Bible, the very first verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:1. A lot of us know this verse. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Or another way to phrase that would be, in the beginning, God created the universe, the galaxies, and this little speck where we live called planet Earth. And then moving right ahead to the New Testament, in John 1:1, it's another account of the beginnings. John wrote, in the beginning of the beginning, really, in the beginning was the Word, the Logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. So we have in the story of our origins, in the story of the universe's origins, we have this intelligent being, this power, this God who's not simply a force, he's not simply a logos or divine mind, but this divine being is personal. He's personal. And maybe someone said to you, well, you have to be really anti-intellectual to believe in God. Well, that's silly. Are you going to say that Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, and Kierkegaard, and Dostoevsky, all those people were anti-intellectual? That doesn't make any sense. So the Bible assumes the existence of God. God is. God has no beginning. God has always existed. And so God is the one who has made and designed the universe. Notice, if we went through Genesis, God does not really say specifically how long he took to do that. He doesn't say specifically how that happened. He simply says, in the beginning, God created everything out of nothing. And we learn from John 1:1 that God, even before there was a beginning, even before creation, that God existed independently of his creation. So God is independent, and the creation and all that's in the creation, that would include us, is dependent upon him for its and for our very existence. In the beginning, God. In the beginning of the beginning, before there was creation, before the cosmos was spoken into existence, there was a God, a self-contained, a self-replenishing, communal God who always existed. And he created this world, he created the universe out of his free will. So God is independent of everything, and everything else is dependent upon God. And then look at Genesis 1:27. This is so great. Genesis 1:27 said, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. So this all-knowing, all-powerful, self-contained, independent God chose to make this universe, chose to make this planet Earth, and chose to make man and woman in his very image and likeness. We were made, we were designed, we were created to have this connection with the God who made everything. And life runs amok. Life gets crazy. Life gets complicated when we try to run away or to deny the very existence of the God who knows us and who made us. So God is independent of everything. Everything else is dependent upon God, and we are dependent upon him. So when you think about this, and this is, I got this from a philosopher who lived quite a while ago. His name's Cornelius Van Til, but he would always talk about in his classes the distinction between the creator, God, and the creature or the creation. And that would be all of nature and mankind. So you have God, especially when it comes to knowledge. So you have God down here. You have mankind down there. So God's knowledge is comprehensive. His knowledge is comprehensive. Our knowledge is partial. God's knowledge is unlimited. Our knowledge is limited. In God, there's no mystery, all right? Now, God may be a mystery, but there's no mystery in God. He's not wondering what's going to happen next in the world, in the universe. God's not wondering about that. Here, in our existence, we're full of mystery, okay? God has absolute certainty. We have dependent certainty. I will not win an A in penmanship this new year. So you have this, I think, this really cool understanding of the knowledge of God and the knowledge of us, the knowledge of mankind, right? So there's always a distinction between God and man and woman. We're like God, we're made in His image, but on a whole nother level, God is nothing like us. God is transcendent. God exists in a whole different plane. And as far as knowledge is concerned, God's knowledge, comprehensive, unlimited, no mystery, absolute certainty. Our knowledge is partial, full of mystery, has dependent certainty and dependent uncertainty. So God designed us and designed the world to work this way. And for me, and perhaps for you, and maybe for you, you're like, what does that have to do with anything? Well, but for me, that was very helpful to me. Because I feel like God gave me a very curious mind. He's given all of us a very curious mind. And I really had this idea that I was going to figure not everything out in the world, but I basically was going to figure God out. I was going to figure Him out. I was going to figure out how God worked. I had the Bible, I had church, I had friends. I tried to surround myself with smart people and bounce ideas. I thought I was going to figure everything out. But I discovered you can't. There are limits. And God has placed these limits on us, and He placed limits on our knowledge. Now, we can learn a lot. And we have, as human beings, in a sense, evolved intellectually in our creations and in technology, which is awesome. But what I've discovered is if you push knowledge far enough in any realm of study, in any endeavor, you're going to bump into mystery. You're going to bump into limits. You're going to bump into paradoxes and antinomies. I don't care if you're talking about biology or chemistry or astronomy or psychology or mathematics. You push that field far enough, as far as you can take it, and you're going to bump into limits. You're going to bump into mysteries in this world, in the universe, even through the great tools of technology. We come to our limits. And God designed it to be that way. God has given us great knowledge. God has made us and created us in His image, which means that we can make real choices, that we can have real purpose and meaning in our life, that we can reflect His creative power and in our life by being creative and creating and designing and arranging and trying to bring order to chaos at the same time. God has created us with limits. God has created us to have some knowledge, but not all knowledge. To understand some mysteries, but not all mysteries. So we have to walk, and we have to relate with God, and know God, and grow with God, and go with God by trust. We trust. We trust that He is a good God. In spite, many times, of our circumstances, we trust that He is a good God, a kind God, a loving God. And we don't have to live as an adolescent species on this planet looking for an identity, because it makes sense, doesn't it? If I really want to know who I am, I need to figure out how I got here and who made me. And perhaps His will and His plan for my life. So, in this brand new year, in 2019, if we're going to know God, if we're going to grow with God and go with God, stepping out, we've got to have one factor. one factor. And it's a factor that we can so easily lose. It's a factor that can so easily slip away from us. But it's what I've been trying to hint at today. And that's the factor of wonder. Wonder. Looking outside at the stars at night should create a sense of wonder. Looking at the mountain peaks and their majesty and their glory should create a sense of wonder. Looking through a telescope at the Milky Way and the stars in the sky should create wonder. Looking at a microscope and how atoms and function and work should create a sense of wonder. Going and looking at a fine piece of art or a painting should create wonder. Listening to music and singing music, especially collectively together, creates a sense of wonder. God has made us to be beings that will cause us to wonder, to be curious. And it's that wonder and that curiosity that causes us to grow and to go with God. If we had a God that we could completely figure out, would that being be God? Or would that being simply be an idol and a reflection of ourselves? God is a God of wonders, a God of majesty, a God of might, and He has created us to live with a sense of wonder. Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. Here's what he said. He said, "Mystery creates wonder, and wonder is the basis of man's desire to understand." Callistos Ware said this. He said, "We see it's not the task of Christianity to provide easy answers to every question, but to make us progressively aware of a mystery. God is not so much the object of our knowledge as the cause of our wonder." Psalm 8:1 says, "O Lord, our Lord, how wonderful is your name in all the earth." Gregory of Nyssa said this. He said, "God's name is not known, it is wondered at." Wondered. During the singing portion of our worship service today, when I sing those words, they cause me to wonder. The everlasting, never-ending, this reckless love of God for this world and for us causes me to wonder. The resurrection power of God that God allows to live inside of you and inside of me, this power which we so little or infrequently appropriate, causes me to wonder. If we could grow with God this year, if we could go with Him, my prayer for you, my prayer for me, my prayer for us would be, God, create a sense of wonder inside of us. Create a sense of wonder, a sense of curiosity, a thirst for who you are. And perhaps the greatest wonder is this transcendent, independent, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-merciful God who exists outside of time and space. That is one wonder, but the greatest wonder is that this God would enter into our human condition and our situation. To get up close to us, to work hard every single day, doing construction work and carpentry for 30 years and making it happen, and then to suffer the pain and the rejection. And this God of wonders would actually come into our place and through His Son die on a cross for us. Wash the feet of His followers. This God, rising again from the dead on the third day, creating the most powerful movement of mankind, the most comprehensive worldview in the history of our world right now with over 2 billion followers. This God, through this one man, Jesus Christ. It makes me wonder. And that he would invite us into a relationship with him causes me to wonder. Now, next week, we're going to talk about one of the biggest barriers, problems that we face in trying to grow and go with God. It's a tough one. But for now, let's take time out and ask that God would create a sense of wonder. Would you pray with me? God, I thank you that you are a faithful God. And God, many times when we try to run away from you, you run after us, you chase us down to bring us back home, to bring us back to the true source of our identity, God. And God, to restore that sense of wonder in us. So Lord, I pray right now that as we enter this time of invitation, that if there's some people here who need to stand and walk down front and say, hey, I need to connect, I need to belong to a community. As we start this brand new year, God, it's my prayer that families and couples and students and singles will stand and come down front and say, hey, as I begin this brand new year, as we begin this year, we want to connect, we want to belong, we want to be a part of this team. God, lead them to stand and come is my prayer. Lord, others are wondering, how do they start? How do they connect with this God who made them and created them? What does that look like? Or how do they get reconnected? What does that look like? That's where they are today. So, Father, I pray they would stand and come as well and make their way down these aisles. We give you this time of invitation. We ask that you would lead those who need to stand and respond. In Jesus' name.